Hi everybody, this is Kimberly from Starfish Design Embroidery Group. I'm trying another angle. Let's see if this will work tonight. Ah, that's not gonna work. Had to move the light. I just moved you off. Hold on one second. I'm trying to lean the tripod over so it's over the table a little bit more so you guys can see closer what I'm doing. I think that's good. Okay, just don't touch it. Alrighty, what are we making tonight? We are making the Midge Vintage Clutch. And this is what she looks like. This is the 5x7. Grayson. And she's a cute little girl. Some vintage flair on the sides. She's inspired by Mrs. Mazo, Marvelous Mrs. Mazo, if you didn't guess. This one I positioned the little roses pretty well. So 5x7 is adorable for a little cosmetic bag. We're going to make the 6x10 small tonight. I'm doing two 6x10 sizes because I think that this regular 6x10 is very unwieldy. It's wide. And I'm hoping that this will fit the regular phone in it, but we'll see because it's kind of got a little bit of flair. As always, I've gone ahead and stitched out the die lines already for you. We are using zipper tabs on this. If you saw the Christmas stocking zipper pouch, it's very similar to that. So I'm going to tape this down, and I kind of have to turn it to myself. But I'm going to tape it down on one end. I'm going to tape it very close because we're actually going to trim pretty close to the end. So I don't need to have a lot of overhang there. And then I'm going to grab a few more pieces of tape, and I'm going to walk the zipper down the teeth so this center line meets the center line here, and it's really hard for me to do that and show you, so I kind of have to look at it myself. So I just fold it up, and you'll do the same thing. Take the time to do this, and then I put a couple pieces of long tape on either side to hold it down on the longer zipper. So if you're doing like the 4x5, 4x4, or even the 5x7, you probably don't need this step. And I'm sorry, I was watching back a video and it's really loud. I've got to figure out a better solution, like maybe using the lapel pin microphone that I bought. I don't know what I did with it. See if that helps to drown out the sound in the machine. So I was like, that's kind of loud. All right, so, and I'm a little bit, I'm inside the line, but I'm a little worried that might be too far over, but we'll give it a try. And until I get the zipper tab in place, I'm going to go ahead and tape this out. Now, I'm using zipper tape, so I did put a little piece of tape at the very end so I don't pull my pull off. If you've seen all my videos, you've seen me do that. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and put this back on, and I'm going to run the tack down stitch. This is number 3 zipper tape from Cam Snap, and it's I love it. I love it. She got all these beautiful colors in, and it's got the faux metallic tape, and most of my designs should work with the number 4.5 or even the 5, but the metallic tape is so much wider that some of the single needle machines have a hard time getting through them, including this girl. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the extra tape. And I'm sorry, I should use white tape so you guys could see it. Hey, Grayson. Sorry, dog, kid. Grayson. You know, if you leave your dog barking for like 2 minutes after 9 o'clock, it's like you're the worst neighbor in the world. Our neighbor is so passive aggressive, she'll actually call us. Bailey's out once in. She's been barking for 15 minutes, and she's never barking for 15 minutes. We get her as soon as we hear her, which we can hear. That day was really funny because I was upstairs, so I heard her right away. And Grayson was actually already on his way out the door when she called. We don't answer the phone to her anymore, though. We've had some challenges with her and her adult son. So it's a shame. Tell me your neighbor stories. Write it in the comments. What's your horror stories? I want to hear them. I guess she's not the worst in the world. It's just kind of a shame. We used to be friends and now we're not. And like my basement light was on, and in the past, that's something she would have noticed and she would have called me and told me. But I don't know how long it's been on. Don't know. Oh, actually, yeah, we went down to change the filter the other night. So I can't remember the last time I was down there before that. Anyway, so we have our tack down stitch. It doesn't go all the way to the end because we're going to use the zipper tabs, so we don't need it. And the zipper tab is to give us a closure. So we're going to pull the tape off the right side. I don't know how your orientation is going to be in your machine. So for the most part, I've identified the positioning as in reference to the bag. This is the right side, this is the left side, not in reference to the hoop. So we're going to go ahead and put this zipper tab down, and we're going to line it up with the die line approximately where that die line is at. I did change this a tiny bit from my first test. And then we're going to go ahead and put this on, and it's going to stitch the tack down as well as a second knot or a second stop, because when I did my demo, I accidentally cut too close to the end of the zipper tape and it came undone. So I'm adding a back tack just to give it a little bit more security. And now you can go ahead and trim that extra zipper off at the end of that back tap using some good duckbill scissors, and that way it won't be in your seam allowance. Which just makes for a nicer bag. Go ahead and pull this tape up and then fold this back. Now, one thing, we don't want to pull this really tautly like that, because then your stitches will be, you'll see your stitches. So just gently fold it back and then tape it down. And now we're going to run the top stitch on it. So can you see that there? You do want to try and press it evenly on both sides, because if you don't, then it may not look nice. So now we're going to go ahead and pull the zipper here, and we're going to go ahead and pull this down a little bit, not all the way down. We want to keep it there for a while. Now see where your die line would be. We want the, see what you can see it there. We want our tape to go right over there to hold our zipper together. So, oh, I'm sorry. First you got to put your little strap down and then put your tape back there to hold that together. And actually I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of tape there by itself, because if you don't, that little piece of zipper could pull apart there and it would just look not nice. Not nice, not nice. Am I talking to a 3-year-old? Not nice. And tape it. So let's pull that a little bit out of the way. And now we're going to go ahead and put this back on and run the tack down and the zipper stop. Then we'll trim and we'll be moving on. I am trying some interesting materials today, so we'll see how this works. I'm having second guesses that the choice of materials is not going to match the theme of the bag, but we'll see. And you see I didn't get that tab on there very evenly. It's okay, you're not going to be able to tell once it's in the bag. So go ahead and get your scissors, your duckbills, and pull that tape out and then trim that off. As close to the seam as you can get it. I'm going to pull this back tap in a little bit because it's a little bit hard to get there. There we go. And again, pull this back, but not too hard, just gently. Tape it back down and top stitch. So now we're up to step 6. So this is our last top stitch. Now I have this Janome 500, so in order to use the thread cutting, I have to have the machine pull the tail so it goes all wobbly loop on me, so yours may not do that. Pull the zipper pull all the way down here, get out of the way, and now we're going to go ahead and put our lining on the bottom first of our panels, 6.5 by 10, and we're going to line that up with the rightmost or the bottom zipper tape line. And I did give some generous measurements after you do the first one. If you want to cut back, you can, but remember, let me point out to you, the zipper is coming in, so this is actually wider out here, so you need to make sure you have that clearance. So it may look like it's much wider than the zipper, but it's really not, because it's gonna have to fold over and provide the clearance on the sides, because this girl's got some curves on her. I couldn't sleep well last night because I took too much medicine, and I was dreaming more bags inspired by Mrs. Maisel. I'm like, oh my gosh, Kimberly, you're losing your mind. Now, I don't have to worry about it because my bracket is over here, and I have my bag rotated in my machine to avoid that. You may not be able to do that. You may not be able to rotate yours. So make sure if you have to fold this up, I pull it out of the way. Fold it up like this and tape it down so it doesn't get in your way. What I'm actually going to do, because we're not going to touch that for a few steps, I don't want it to get hung up in my, accidentally pull it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and roll it over here and clip it to my stabilizer edging. That way it won't fall underneath and mess me up. Ask me how I thought of this. Yeah, the other day. Well, I was testing. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Okay, so there. I just put it like that so it's out of my way. Now, I did digitize this so you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either have a top stitch or no top stitch. Now, on this material, I think having a top stitch will be okay, so I'll probably show you how to do it that way, since the instructions show you the other way. But the reason why I didn't want a top stitch is because I think, like if you look at this bag, I think the top stitch would take away from the look of the applique. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I did fussy cut this design, so I want to go ahead and make sure I get it even in the pouch. So right quick, I'm going to just figure out where the even mark is. So 3.5. So I put a little mark there. So this is directional, so I put it here to get the right direction and then just flip it over. So I want it 3.5 right there. Okay, so I'm going to tape that down. And try and get it even. When you have that zipper pull in there, it is a little bit harder to keep this even because the bulk of that zipper pull is in there. But try your best to keep it even. I'm going to put a little piece of tape in the center. All right. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to feel for that zipper. And actually you can make a crease in your fabric like I just did. And we're going to lay our vinyl on top of that, but right side up. And if you want, you can run the placement line from the vinyl earlier in this step and then trim it out. I'll show you what I mean. And then trim it out of here so it's not so thick. So if we place this in here, and what we want is The goal is for this to get caught in that seam, but we don't want it to be too close to the zipper. All right, that's good. I'm going to tape it down. And you can always trim it if you need to, if it's too much. Okay, so I'm going to put it back here. It's not up enough. It's not going to get caught in the seam. I can see that. So let me pull it up a little bit more. Okay, that should be good. We can always trim it if we have to. Okay. All right, it's gonna be pretty close. All right, lining is out of the way. Normally you'd just be tacking this down. Oh, perfect. Caught it just perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're doing partial, I forgot to tell you that, I got so distracted with this. We're doing partial seams. So this is stopped now so that you can reach in here and pull your zipper pull down and out of the way. So you do not risk hitting that zipper pull. So pull it all the way to the other end and then go ahead and put your presser foot back down and resume. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to leave the bottom undone. We don't need to top stitch that. That's too much trouble. We're going to pull this down. And tape that down. And then we'll top stitch it. I don't know if I like that. Like that. Yeah. This is a little bit, it's cotton lycra, and I put some stabilizer on it, but I don't think it was enough. So I'm not able, if I pull it too hard, it's gonna stretch. So I'm just gonna try and snug it up. Tape it down. I own stock in this tape, I wish. Okay. So this is fabric, so I'm not gonna worry about running the stitch to trim that vinyl underneath. But if you were doing 2 layers of vinyl, you could skip ahead and run the placement stitch for the swoop and cut the vinyl out behind it. But I want the vinyl to be for the integrity of the bag, so I'm not going to do that. Because now we're going to top stitch, and the same thing, it's going to stop as we get through here. Oh, it's just not down as far as I want it because that vinyl's in there. So I don't like that. Okay. I might have to kind of guide this with my hands. You know, I don't like to do that, but okay. So I did that to show you guys, and now I don't like it. So I would stick with what the instructions say. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and top stitch. I wanted to show you the difference of the look. And it's going to stop about 3/4 of the way down. And you might have been able to get by without stopping on the top stitch, but every presser foot is different, and I didn't want to take any chances. So push it all the way to the other end, and then start and finish. And you do get a little bit of an overlap there, but it's okay. Okay, now it's going to go ahead and do our trim, but I want to be able to see the thread, so even though it's a pain in the butt because I'm on a single needle, I am going to cut it and put some silver thread in there so I can see where to trim it better. And then you guys can see too. my machine upstairs, the 6 needle. If you think this thing is loud, that thing is really loud. Really, really loud. Okay. So now it's going to go ahead and run the tack down, which will help hold this in place. And this is the step that I mean that if you hadn't stitched this down, you could have ran this step. What you could have done is left this folded up, ran this step, and trimmed this out. But again, I wanted the stability of this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let it run the bean stitch now, and then I'm going to trim after the bean stitch. I kept that in there though, in case you want to be able to trim out your vinyl. And maybe I'll do a live in the video or in the group and show how to do that with 2 vinyls. I'm trying to get my subscribers up on YouTube. I cannot do a YouTube live until I have at least 1,000 subscribers. Okay, and always keep an eye on your lining. Make sure your lining is out of the way. So there's our bean, and we're going to go ahead and trim as close to that as we can with our duckbill scissors. So you can remove this tape. Oh my gosh, I have it almost centered, almost perfect. Just a smidge off the bottom corner of the crest. Couldn't do that again if I tried. So note, you're going to come off to the side straight here and then curve in. Do not cut the sides off. And I'll save these little scraps, because man, these scraps from backstitch go for a lot of money. You don't even want to know how much I paid for this material. Don't want to know. I didn't discover the company until after they did all this. So I bought this on the buy sell page, and it was not cheap. I'm overdue for something for a Harry Potter fan. So I thought I'd make this and see if they're interested in buying it. Keep the blade of the duckbill, oops, I didn't take this tape off, to the side where you don't want to cut it. Cut right off to the side. I think I did an okay job. Well, we're gonna find out. Okay, and having those really tiny ones is very helpful. See, like right here, I didn't get good enough, and I'm afraid it might shred. So I'm gonna just try and trim it just a little bit. But so much easier to get close when you have the extra material to hold on to, which is why I made the piece a little bit bigger than you need it to be. Gives you something to hold on to while you're trimming it. If you don't trim the fabric really well, and I have the interfacing on here, I'm using SF101 because this is a cotton lycra and it stretches. If you're using woven cotton and you don't need the weight of the SF101, just use a very lightweight fusible or heat and bond light or something like that, because it helps keep the fabric shreds from showing. Okay, so I'm gonna go change back to my purple for the rest of this. Okay, now it's going to do the satin stitching. So that's going to take a couple minutes to do. So if I could figure out how to fast forward it, I would do that for you. But I don't think I'll be able to. So if you need to go take a drink right now, go for it. All right. While doing that, I'm going to actually go fix my master file. Move that. Oops, whoa. Look what happened. Whoa, Kimberly. That's a close call. When you have the dangly zips, you always have to pay attention to where that little thing is at, and I wasn't. So let me get some tape. Tape this guy down. so he doesn't come loose on me. That could have been very dangerous. Another reason that you should not leave your machine if you don't know it very well. I'll wait and fix that later. I got a few people testing it, so hopefully they'll come back and tell me they noticed that with the zipper tacked down. One down, one to go. Oh, it's so cute. I think I'm gonna love this bag. And it's got a generous area for you to embroider or use focus fabric or whatever you want with it. And I don't know if you notice the nature of the in the hoop bags. And it's actually something I normally hate. And a couple of my very early patterns I actually digitized to avoid it, but it tends to have this little curve right here just because of the way the lining gets stitched in there. But on this bag I actually love it. It adds to the character of the bag. So we're almost there. After this we're actually almost done. I'm a little worried about the D-rings. I always am on this Janome. She just is not as powerful as the machine upstairs. Oh, I forgot. I think I'm okay because I'm using cotton. And this vinyl will take the satin stitch. But if you're using a different kind of vinyl, like what I did for this one, put an extra layer of cutaway underneath. Float it under here before you do this so it doesn't cut into your vinyl. Usually this is the metallic vinyl from my embroidery. It doesn't have that issue, but if you're using the thinner vinyls, like the fluoro, the stripes, those really need extra support. And then after this stitch, we're going to go ahead and roll the lining down on the back and tape it in place. It's not going to get stitched down at this point. And then we're going to run the D-rings. I tried as much as I could to get this so that it doesn't go back and forth, but there's a few areas where I could control it, and this is one of them. And actually it's going to try and go all the way down here, so I'm going to do this right now. I'll still come up here and hold it, but it's going to come down to do the D-ring stitches next. So now we want to go ahead and turn it over and pull our lining down tautly and tape it in place because we didn't do that little top stitch on it. Okay, so go ahead and finger crease it and then start at the center and tape that down and then go to each corner. And then I'm actually going to add another piece of tape on those pieces there, because otherwise they will pop up on you and fold under while you're stitching and drive you crazy. This material is, I thought was regular woven cotton, but it's actually got a little bit of a stretch to it. Huh. That's a Robert Kaufman. I wonder if, I've never seen cotton woven have that much stretch to it before. Okay. So, and we'll keep an eye on, make sure that doesn't come loose. Right now we're going to run our D-ring strap connectors, and you might have a hard time seeing these because I'm using the purple thread, but you will be able to see it on your own machine. And just keep an eye on that zipper pull, because my machine is going to go all over the place. Okay, I think I'm okay now, but I think it's going to do that next. I did not digitize this for side zipper pulls because the nature of the style of it, I did not think that would look right. But you can put them in at the end if you want. I think you can see the stitch right there. So now this is the tricky part. How long do you make your D-ring straps? And this is really tricky because I put some interfacing on these to make them more strength. You need to have enough clearance for your D-ring and your presser foot. So here's the D-ring. You need to have enough room for that presser foot to come through here. So for me right here, I need a minimum of about 1/2 inch, but you can't predict which way it's going to come. So I usually try to do 1 inch from the stitch, the tack placement. And I use a big piece of tape so that I have a nice guide over it. Usually if you end up putting it right at the top of your top stitch line, usually that works out for most machines. So I'm going to place this so it's gliding right over that placement stitch so that my presser foot doesn't hit the side of that vinyl and bump it. So I'm using a nice long piece of tape. And all I did is take a 3/4 inch by 3 inch long, I think it's 3 inches, or maybe it's 2 inches. No, 3 inch long strip, and I put a little bit of Decoville light on it so that it won't be as likely to break. Because when you do a single layer of these, that's more likely to happen of the vinyls. Okay, let me make sure it looks even down here. This looks like it's a little bit wider down here. So just take your time with this step and make sure you won't want your D-ring straps to be on there upside uneven. Okay, that's right. And then if you need to, you're really worried that these little, let me get some more tape here. The D-rings are going to move around on you. Get a couple pieces of small tape and actually hold the D-ring down like this and tape it to the fabric. So it wants to pull up with your vinyl. So pull it straight down and put the tape all around it. Now, if you're using a shiny vinyl, be very careful because in my experience, most of these tapes leave a residue on the shiny vinyl. So it's going to go ahead and start over here on the left and work all the way over. And I'm going to keep an eye as I hear the cutting threaders. I'm going to try and make sure this doesn't come down here and get stuck. I got lucky that time. It wasn't going to, but you just never know with this machine. And the same thing, once it's finished, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. All right. Now we're ready to get on to the good stuff. All right, let's go ahead and remove this tape. Sometimes I can reuse that, sometimes I can't. Okay, I'm going to trim that. Get get that out of my way. Okay, now we're ready to put our lining on the back. Yay, our lining didn't come loose. Hoo, 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 hoo. All right, so we can use these pieces of tape again. Bailey, you've already been taken care of, my friend. Yes, you have. Grayson has already fed you, and you've already gotten water, so I don't know what your problem is. Okay, we're going to tape. All right, I'm going to grab another piece to put down here. It's not taut enough. See how that's loose right there? So I'm going to pull this up and pull it a little bit more taut. Grayson, can you give your dog some attention, please?
I can. I'm in the bathroom.
Oh, okay. All right, so we're going to pull this guy towards the middle a little bit and tape him down. Just get him out of the way for a second. All right, we're starting over here, so actually we're going to pull him all the way down here. So pull up this from your D-rings and pull him all the way down here underneath your D-ring. And then we're going to put this down and we're going to do the same thing we did for the bottom panel. We're going to do halfway across and then we're going to stop, move the zipper pull, and do the other half. Well, I'm saying half. It's really like 2/3 and 1/3. I'm not going to top stitch this because I don't plan on turning it cutting the lining and doing that, but it's the same thing. This is digitized. If you want to top stitch it, you can. So you would just, I'll show you, you would just do this step. Now, one caveat, and I make sure to notice this in their PDF, some machines will color sort and merge colors. So that's why I say at the very beginning of the PDF, make sure you have the 22 steps you're supposed to have. And I didn't even check myself. Okay, now I'm going to move the zipper back down over to the other end now. All the way down. Lay it back down. Make sure your bottom didn't come loose when you did this, which mine did. I'm glad I said that. What's the matter, baby doll? Okay, and then we're going to start that one. And see how it curved around that seam? And that's because my D-ring came up loose in there. And so it curved around there. So I'm actually going to back that up a few stitches and see if I can get that to straight, because that's the first seam. And I want it to be neater than that. Okay, I'm going to get some tape and hold that D-ring down. Shh. Shh. What do you want? She's, oh, I'm so sorry about the dog barking. The child is indisposed right now, so he can't do anything about her. Okay, let's see if we can get a cleaner stitch on that. Yeah, that's better. You see how easy that is to recover? See what I'm talking about right there? So now it's straight. Okay, make sure the bottom. So now if you wanted to top stitch, this is where you would fold your lining and this up and then do the top stitch. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave the lining done here. And then I'm going to do this. Make sure that D-ring is down. I taped that one down. Pull this one down and make sure he's down. All right. And see, the single needle machines just do not handle this bulk as well as the big machines do. Okay, I'm gonna move my zipper pull down, and I'm actually going to go ahead and make sure when I do, I put that D-ring down too, so it doesn't come loose. Okay, it's nice and right there. Wait a second, did it come loose? No, it's okay. I don't know why it looked like it was loose. Okay, now we're ready to pull the lining up in the back and do the side seams. The reason we're pulling it up in the back is because we don't want it caught in the side seams. So I'm just going to finger crease it. And pull it up, and I'm going to put some tape right here where that little balk is to keep it straight. And now again, if you need to navigate yours and make sure your zipper is about 3/4 of the way open or all the way on this at this point. If you need to navigate your extra material there and fold it over or whatever, go ahead and do that. Taking the extra tape off the D-rings too. We don't need that there anymore. And you can tape this down. It's usually a good idea to tape it down because it does sometimes want to come up and get poofy. But this vinyl is pretty heavy and it usually lays down okay. This is an issue I have when she gets too close to the end of the bobbin, or not even. She doesn't want to pull the bobbin up. I have to pull it out and redo it. Drives me crazy. I think it's just because I'm using these pre-wound bobbins, and everything I've read about this machine, she prefers everything Janome. So these were pre-wound bobbins that were bought for Janome, but for the 350. But I don't think they're any different, so I don't know what the problem is, but that is the problem I have. Oh, and look at this. I have a piece of tape over here underneath the carriage. That can't be good. Sometimes I have trouble getting the thing on over here because the table is up. So if that happens and you have trouble getting it on, all you have to do is press this arrow down here on this button and press this little one that looks like a hoop with an arrow. Press that again, say okay, and it'll bring your frame all the way down here where it's easier to put it back on. There, your master's done. Go get him. See that? Make sure your lining doesn't come down, and then you press it again. Press the arrow, click OK. And it takes it back to where you had it. And I got to back up because it actually got pretty far. So you can actually just do. All right. I'm going to hold this thread. Oh, it's still not working. Ah, okay. Sometimes I have to actually pull the thread up. So if you guys don't know how to do that, you hold this thread taut, turn the hand wheel all the way around, and then pull the bobbin thread up. And once you can see it, having tweezers really helps. Then hold both pieces of that as you start your stitches. And then you can trim it. To get a good seam ripper. So before we do our last step, 21 is actually our last step because 22 is only to stop the machine from centering. So you'll see that we didn't go all the way up here on the zipper because it would have caught our lining. So we're going to go ahead and cut the stabilizer behind our lining right now. If we don't, we won't be able to open our pouch. So I'm going to take off this tape now. I don't need it anymore. It really wanted to get stuck to that flannel. everywhere that's secured in the front, you can take the tape off. Or wait till the end, whatever you want. But this is all secure. And some of this tape you might be able to reuse on the back. Like this piece will probably be able to reuse. Okay, so I'm gonna put that there for a second. Grayson? It's gotten cold here, so she doesn't like to be out there very long. So this is easy but tricky because you don't want to cut into your zipper. So all you have to do, remove this tape, is get the seam ripper and just finger press this nicely. Not too much, you don't want to dislodge the stabilizer. But if you just get the seam ripper in here, right underneath and just in the stabilizer, you can actually cut all the way across. So I have it in the stabilizer, and you can see it that it's only in the stabilizer because you can see the silver, the metal underneath it, and it'll go all the way across. That easy. And then on the sides, be very careful because this is what I did in that other bag. I actually cut it here. So careful that you don't cut into the zipper. And then the same thing here, I just hold it tautly. It takes a little bit to get it started on this side, but if you hold it tautly and once you get it started, then it's the same thing. It'll slice all the way down. Because that little ball will help you keep it in the position it's supposed to be. There you go. Now go ahead and fold your lining down. Oh, that wasn't good. That's how I unhooped my project the other day. Fold it down and then tape it. Come on, I must have a few more pieces I can reuse. There. And then just watch when you put it back down there and it doesn't come dislodged. And we're going to check it anyway. So if it does come dislodged for some reason, you know, you can rerun it. Oh, it's okay. It's easy enough to take this last stitch out and rerun it. See, that time I got it on. So now I'm going to double check that. It looks like it's too far up there. Nope, it's okay. Paranoid. Now it's going to go all the way around the bag and leave an opening for you to turn the bag with. Now this stitch is just slightly outside the other stitch, and it serves two purposes. One, it helps the stitches not show in the vinyl, which tends to happen with vinyl. And second, it makes sure that if something is not perfect in the alignment of my digitizing, it'll be in the lining, not on the exterior. Okay, so now it's going to stop here and try and stitch something here, but this is where we're going to stop. We don't want it to come back around and try and get centered in the center and then get stuck on any hardware. So double check and make sure everything's stitched out. We have our opening right here, and you're ready to go. And take all the tape off. And you can take the hoop off. I have my setup over here over the cold air exchange, one of them. And I found a whole bunch of thread and stuff in my filter. So I'm like, yikes, I need to change. I'm going to have to move this around. Now I'm going to try and fussy cut this long piece off because there's a lot of stabilizer here. And this poly mesh is not cheap. It's more expensive than regular tearaway. And that's what you can use to float in when you need extra support of heavy satin stitching. It doesn't have to be the paper cutaway. It can be the poly mesh. I've done the poly mesh and it's worked perfect. So these are nice big pieces. I don't want to get rid of them. So I just have a pile of them. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to cut on the lining side first just to get my notches that I'm going to use to, you can kind of cut, this is too big. to turn it in when we're all done. And then I turn it over and trim the rest from the other side where I can see the thread better. So I just come in here and do a little notch like that. And then over here, another notch. And then we're gonna trim out the vinyl. We just need the fabric there. Okay, so now that that's cut, now you can come around here and cut it from this side. If you have pinking shears, this is a good time to use those. So I'm going to cut all the way around, and this is a little bit heavier vinyl. Pivot there. Try not to cut into your zipper tape on the top as you trim that. And it's probably a good idea not to trim your D-ring lines too far either, even though they're pretty reinforced at this point. So again, I'm going to cut here and pivot a little bit. And then I shouldn't be cutting over this thing either. I'm going to cut over to that notch. Okay, and then I'm going to come on the other side and pull the lining down, just the lining, leave the stabilizer in the vinyl, and cut this off straight across so that's not in our turning hole. All right, now this can be tossed. There's nothing salvageable there. So I did about in between a 1/4 and 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to trim into this one a little bit more. It's a little thick. Okay, so now what you're going to do down here in these little corners here, you're going to trim that off like that. And over here, like that. At the top corners, you're going to trim those off. And this is a little thick up here. I'm going to actually fold this down and trim the vinyl in the back only, because it's a little bit thicker. I don't want to get too close to that zipper tape because I've seen people accidentally cut into their tape and then it ruins it. So I'm just going to get a little bit off there because I laid it a little higher up than the zipper. That was my mistake. Don't do that. It should be lined up just to the top of the zipper. So you shouldn't have this issue. I don't know how I managed to do that. And I'm going to try and get it out of the corners because otherwise we won't have nice corners. Okay, there we go. All right, so now in order to preserve these curves that we made so beautifully, we need to put some notches in them. So get your smaller scissors and just come in here and put little notches every 1/4 inch or so along that curve. And that's going to help spread this vinyl and lining out inside and give you a nice smooth silhouette, which is the whole point of this, right? Mrs. Mazo has that nice silhouette. So this is all inspired by. Okay. And now, in this section here, you see there's a straight and then curves. Here you want to kind of come in at an angle underneath here, like about 70 degrees, 60 degrees, and then notch it out. And it's kind of hard because you have that zipper tape in there. But that'll help you get that, that complete trim at the top. See that? So I'll do the other side again. So come in at about 70 degrees. I think, if I remember my geometry correctly. And then down here, same thing. Do not cut into your stitches. You're just trying to get that little bulk out right there. Okay, and then do the little notches. I did cut into the seam, the lining on that one. I know I'm a little bit off camera. I apologize. It's kind of hard to do some of this stuff on camera. think one of these days I'll do is I'll have Grayson come out here and hold the camera while I do this stuff, so you can see it easier. All right, that's pretty straight right there. I think that should be good. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's all done. The straight areas, you don't have to worry too much, just this extreme curve. Now the fun part, get inside here and pull this bad boy inside out. Actually, you're pulling it to the lining side out. So if you have any of these hemostats, that's very helpful. So I like to get in here and I grab onto the thicker side of the bag and I lock the hemostats on that and then pull it. And they kind of act as a third hand for you. And then once you can get that one side, heavy side out and turn it, the rest of it will come easily. Actually, left most of these bags a pretty good size opening to turn it in. So just gonna work that out. Try not to pull too hard and tear into your lining stitches, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. You can stitch that by hand or glue or double stick tape and fix it. So now we got almost all the lining out. Just keep working it so all the lining is out. And then reach inside here and finish opening up your zipper. I find if you take the time to push the lining out now and make it look right side out lining, it's easier when you do finally get it all the way right side out. Just what I've noticed. This is working out to be good because it is my bedtime. Let's see. Now you can reach in here and finish pulling the zipper pull all the way, navigate around that D-ring, and now turn it all the way out. I don't like to glue it until I have turned it all the way right side out, make sure everything is absolutely perfect. I know it means I have to turn the bag out inside out again to glue it, but I just prefer it this way because I don't want to have it glued shut and then find out that, oh shoot, I messed something up that I maybe could fix on the regular sewing machine and I can't because I glued it shut. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get these little hemostats and we're going to go inside the opening. And it's a little hard because part of the opening is secured, but just reach them inside there and then push out your corners and your edge. And what you'll do is you'll rub the round edge of your hemostats right along your side. See that? You see how you can see the stitches there because that's vinyl for you. But that extra row of stitching will help make it not that obvious. There's that side. And then on the bottom, do the same thing. Just run the hemostats around that seam down there. Push, push, push gently with whatever your rounded edge is. And then around here. You might have to do it twice. That did come out. And you can also roll it with your fingers. This side is usually the hardest, so what I like to do is I put this in here and I just kind of pop up the corner. Especially since it has a zipper tab on it, it's easier. Usually. It's making a liar out of me today. And just work it a little bit. You'll know when it's up. It's totally not out yet, but you'll be able to tell when it's not out. This because the way we construct this, the zipper tab does get stuck a little bit in the seam. So generally you don't want that in your zipper tab. There we go. Now it's out. And then the same thing over here. Work that zipper tab out with your hemostats and your fingers. Ideally, you want them to look equally on both sides, so your bag is equal. There you go. All right. And then what I mean by rolling it is you go like this and work the seam until you're happy with it. And since I didn't glue it close, if I decide I want some more notches in there because it's not curving the way I want, I can. But I'm happy with the way it's curving. So now we close it. Hey, Grayson, can I have that pink phone, please? I want to see if it'll fit in this bag. I don't think it's going to. I think you're going to, because the opening is, it was on the bed. The opening is a little bit more narrow. But there we go. And most of this vinyl is really forgiving. If you want to put clips on it and put it overnight, it helps with these seams. I usually just get them where I want them and put a book on top of it. But I'm right, I don't think I do like having that top seam on there. I think I would have been able to pull this down a little more. But I'm pretty pleased with this pouch. I think it's cute. I think some little Harry Potter fan is going to absolutely adore it. Let's see if I can find a way to make it stand up for y'all while I get up. Turn the video off. There we go. So let me know what you think. These should be listed on my Etsy shop by the time you guys watch this video. Please subscribe to the channel. If you like my designs, give me a thumbs up. And I can see it's not the right angle. There we go. How cute is that? All right, guys. Have a good night.